This is Steve Heitzer, and you're listening to Everyone Needs a Spotter. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Everyone Needs a Spotter, your multifamily fitness podcast brought to you by the expert team here at RMS Fitness, plus one today, but we'll introduce them in a moment. Really happy to be here with you today, as is always our custom. We're going to go around the table and make our introductions. To my left, you know him, you love him. He's here because it's Friday sometimes. Steven, he's here with us today. Adio, how's it going, brother?
Doing good. Loved by many, hated by all.
Yes.
How about that?
Depends which day you ask him, right?
It's good to be here, man. It's been a minute, and we have a special guest.
Yeah, we're working our way all the way around. We'll end with him. Across from Steven and I should say, fearlessly leading from the end of the table, is fearless leader himself, Robert Decker.
Hey, Steve.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, brother.
Hey, can you turn it down?
Doing my best here.
Your energy is making me uncomfortable. Immediately to his left, everyone's favorite podcast contributor, Lil Whitey, Emily Vinos.
What's going on? I'm super psyched today because we do have our special guest, other than Steven.
Yeah. It's been a busy week, guys. You could say she's a little wiped out.
Yeah.
Let's see if I had a laugh reel, we could do that, see? No. But no, I did mention that we had an awesome guest here with us today. And when I say awesome guest, I mean we are really grateful to have him here with us today. He's made quite an effort to be here in our RMS headquarters location here. Across the table with me, I'm happy to introduce Glen Taylor.
Well, thank you. And normally when I'm referred to as special, it's more like special. But probably not even appropriate to be suggesting that. But thanks for having me on board. As a long-term listener, first-time attendee. It's great to be here.
Well, listen, I hope you're ready to live with that forever, Glenn, because I edit nothing in post, so you're in there now, buddy.
I am special.
No, but Glenn is here with us today. We're really grateful for his visit. He's here. Glenn, you wear many hats. What would be, I'm going to leave this to you, I guess, to introduce yourself since it's many dynamics to it, but maybe just introduce yourself to our listeners and what it is that you do and how you do it.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, again, firstly, thanks to the team at RMS for having me. It's been an absolute blast the last few days. I guess I wear two hats. Some would suggest bipolar, but I run and operate a small business called Fit Into Shape. We are an equipment vendor in Australia who really focuses on gym designs and fit outs and solutions. But also I'm fortunate enough to work for one of the US companies called Talk Fitness as their Asia Pacific sales director. Lucky to be able to do both roles and fortunate to be able to travel to the US and come meet with your team today. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you being here. Being that you are affiliated with our friends at Torque, that's probably where the biggest part of our overlap goes. But I'll be honest, I was a little starstruck when I ran into you a few years ago for the first time. I had seen some of your content and things that you put out there on LinkedIn, and we were down were we in Miami or San Diego? I can't remember which one it was.
San Diego.
San Diego, yeah. And you're such a small guy, I hardly recognized you walking through the crowd there. But when I saw you, I recognized you right away, and I wanted to reach out. And since then we've kind of engaged back and forth over the internet. And it's one of the weirdest things about life in 2024 and 25 is that somebody that lives, on the other side of the planet can somehow end up, right here in your living room. So it's pretty cool. We're grateful.
Well, mate, it's surprising that you recognise me. I'm obviously taller in real life than LinkedIn suggests. So,
No, you weren't actually hard to pick out of that crowd at all.
I am special. Thank you.
But what we do before we get going with our subject, we always do the week in review, and it has been quite a week to review. So I'll lead with Steven. He's had a busy one, man. How to go for you in RMS land this week?
Oof, man, it's been quite a week. Monday and Tuesday we had a massive installation at a secure location. It's been almost a year in the making, and it's from design to seeing it completed. It's been beautiful to see, and it's also nice to see the reactions of the customer. everyone using the gym, because they've been waiting for something like this for a long time. And it goes without mention that 80% of the product in that cardio or in that room is Torque Fitness products, and they were really impressed at the quality, how it really stood out, and all the different types of attachments. I mean, it was a huge upgrade to what they had. But I'll tell you one thing, man. When you have all those boxes laid out and all the pieces everywhere, it was overwhelming to see. But as the RMS crew handles it beautifully, it went smooth, and they're loving it.
That's awesome, man. And of course, that's an unusual project. It has a lot of kind of unique dynamics to it. There's obviously a very secure facility, limited access to technology and power tools and certain things on the project. So it kind of, requires all of our chops to pull one like this off. So it's been a fun week to see that all come together. And you mentioned the thing about all those pieces. That's one of the things I'm going to ask Glenn about here in a few minutes, is that as a Torque representative, he's got to be like a master builder, because Torque is so modular and so able to be put together different ways. I'm curious to ask you a little bit about how you navigate some of the complexity of that on installs, but we ran into a little bit of that ourselves on this one. So Robert Deckard, fearless leader.
Yes, sir.
How's been the week, bro? How's been the week?
I couldn't ask for a more stressful week, Steve. Yeah, this guy Glenn decided to come in at the peak of our season, and it had added a dynamic. But I really appreciated being out in the field yesterday, trying to make things right. Not every project goes exactly the way you want it, but we went out and made it right. To Steven's point, we went over to our customer and install all that Torque equipment. And what's funny, if I could share the story, because Steven always adds a little wrinkle to everything. So when it comes to me and says, well, you think Glenn could come and see it? And I said, Steven, you realize Glenn is from Australia.
Wait a minute. Glenn's from Australia?
That's where that special comes in.
I thought you just sounded funny, bro.
So I tried to explain to Steven that because of that dynamic, that they probably weren't going to allow our dear friend Glenn to enter the building. But Steven, being the guy he is,
Let me ask.
is still going to ask the question. And once he asks the question, the gentleman he asks, he doesn't cut, he's a straightforward kind of dude.
He's a straight shooter.
No. And Steven's rebuttal, but he's a nice guy. And unfortunately, that was not enough. But Glenn's just going to have to take our word for it. It was a very good project.
Look, I feel like maybe you should have shown him my social media presence. He might have changed his mind then.
Yeah.
But
He could have.
It's a shame, because he said if you had been a really, really nice guy, he would have let you in. But it was just the only one really. I mean,
But the thing was, it was like, he asked what nationality you were in, and I said Australian, and he was like, definitely not.
That's a good standpoint.
I don't know, can they even ask that? No. No, that's funny. But you know what, Emily? You were part of all the activity this week. How was your opinion of the week?
Yeah, it was one of those, I was unpacking the boxes and handling all the trash breakdown and seeing all those pieces. There was no walk room. And we were all thinking, how is this really going to come together? But I know, I have full confidence in the team, and we got it done. Of course, there was a few others that were on that project that are not here today. Adam, Logan, Caleb, and Adam sees everything through. Sometimes without some abuse, verbal abuse that goes along with it, but he sees it through, and so that was a fun day. And then I was really worried about how this visit was going to go with Glenn, if this was going to be worth his time. But I have to say, I'm very honored that he has spent so much time with us and talked to us, and yesterday was really a lot of fun being on the road with him, and having him here today has been a lot of fun too. So,
Yeah. No, you stole the words right out of my mouth. That was exactly how I was feeling about it. So, Glenn, before he arrived in town, he sent me a text, and I said, "What do you really trying to do, man? I said, there's a lot we can go. We can go see some sites. We can go check some things out. And he said the magic words and said, I'm keen to go on any service, install, or site visits you have. And since we were busted at the gills over here with things to do, we took him at his word and ran down.
I mean, this guy is our guest, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't have to come and help, but he jumped in at any moment and was helping out. So I really did appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. I really did.
No problems. I'd do it for anyone I felt sorry for. So.
He's talking about me.
So, with that, Glenn, you've had a busy week already, obviously. But I'd love to know a little bit about your week, where your travels have taken you, and also how you felt about your day out in the field with our team. That was obviously kind of a special day for us too.
Yeah. So my week is kind of semi-typical, but semi-unusual. Back in Australia in Brisbane, normally we don't hit cyclones that far south in Brisbane, Queensland in Australia. So there's a cyclone that's been building and it's coming in ashore. So that was kind of a distraction, but knowing that I was leaving to come over here, was partly wondering whether I'd get out or not, worried about family and everything back home,
Sure.
but made the decision to come. It was about 33 hours in transit to get from Brisbane to LA to Atlanta to here. Lots of travel, but that's part of kind of what my usual role is. It's been absolutely awesome to just be, an inductee to the RMS fitness team, to get my jersey earlier this morning, to have an apple juice with the team on the podcast, and it's been just a great week to experience, another business in a similar but different field, and just gaining knowledge is great. So truly thankful to the team. So
Yeah, I mean, going out yesterday, we had some equipment to move. Couldn't ask for a better visitor on an equipment move day than a guy like Glenn. He probably could have handled most of that himself without our help.
Pick up with one hand.
But it was really nice to have him there. And then it worked out really great too, because Pilates reformers are a new element to what we're doing here. It's all of a sudden become a really common request for clients. And I was tasked with putting my first one together in the field, and fortunately for me, I didn't know, but Glenn's like a Pilates expert. He knew exactly how that machine was supposed to go together and work, and we got right on through that. So it's really been nice. So we appreciate you coming out on the road with us yesterday, and then for being here in the office with us today and letting us kind of do the content thing. It's been really cool.
has been a lot of fun, but I better correct you. I don't think I'm an expert in Pilates. I don't know if that does my image any harm or damage, but I've been around a Pilates reformer a bit or two. So.
Yeah. Well, you're the most expert person I know. No, but that's great. So, I mean, you do a podcast and some content of your own. Before we go into what you do for your site planning, maybe you want to plug your podcast a little bit.
Look, if anyone wants to listen in to Tailor-Made Chaos, there'll be an episode coming up probably in about 3 months' time, because I'm a little bit slow to get to production with the crew at RMS here. It's a 4-part series that will probably merge into 1 or 2 episodes. But basically my podcast is just about interviewing different people in different parts of the fitness industry and talking about how they came to the industry. A lot of fun. It's pretty informative, and I never cease to stop learning from people's histories, their past, and I just find that interesting. So it's my approach on a podcast. It's a lot of fun. So if anyone wants to listen, feel free to look it up on all the good places that podcasts are.
Yeah, everywhere you find your podcasts,
yeah.
right?
Gym Design Chaos or Tailor-Made Chaos, depending on which media platform you look at. So
yeah. Tailor-Made Chaos, that's such a good name. I love that name.
It is pretty cool.
But no, I do want to dive into a little bit of what your world is like. We talk a lot about how the RMS team gets to where we're trying to go and the clients that we deal with. But in our conversations, I've identified that you deal with some different types of clients, different arrangements than we do, partly because of where you're at and the dynamics of business where you are. So I'd love to know more about your facility planning, how that all works for you, what that looks like, kind of what your process is for, who's an ideal client for I'm trying to think of your business name, but it skipped me there. But who's an ideal client for Glen Taylor when it comes to space design?
So I guess it's sort of twofold, but the answer is actually kind of the same. So what I do with Talk is very similar to what I do in my business in Australia called Fit Into Shape.
That's it.
Yeah. Couldn't get that plug in there.
I was trying, bro. It wasn't coming to me.
That's right. There's a lot of acronyms, names, and things going around. But in terms of that, we do focus heavily on the Talk product and the uniqueness that we can create in a facility with that. Obviously, there are a lot more elements to a facility other than the equipment, but we do like to focus on what you can create into a space to essentially maximize the functionality of a space and minimize the equipment requirement to do so. So if, for example, in that functional space, if we can create more functionality with less equipment, then it enables the facility to either save some dollars or to put other pieces of equipment in there. And what I like about what we have the ability to do is we can copy what somebody else has done and put in a similar type functionality. But if we're lucky enough to be involved in the design in the earlier phases, it's very hard when you have the Talk product in there to copy the uniqueness of what we do. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those really good differentiators. So if we're fortunate enough to influence and work with people on the design in the space, generally they find it very hard if they get alternate quotes to copy or mirror what we do because of the uniqueness and the customization ability of the product. So hopefully that kind of sums that up.
No, I mean,
there's so many dynamics to it, including space circulation and what they're trying to achieve in a space, natural light into the facility, what angle the sun's coming up and raising and setting, and whether it's a facility that caters to different demographics, how do you set up the equipment differently? There's so many factors to it, but in a nutshell, we try and customize a solution that suits the facility's requirements.
Yeah, and a typical client for you, is this like a club, someone that wants to open up a club or a dues paying facility, or what's, we talk a lot about multifamily, being our, our kind of core customer base. They have very unique needs and challenges. I assume a lot of your customers have unique challenges too. So how does that, play out? Is that more of the customer base for you? Would you say?
I think it's a bit of a mix. In my role with Talk as Asia Pacific Sales Director, we work with a lot of key customers. So a couple of those key customers are Anytime Fitness and Snap Fitness. We develop accounts in local markets where they prefer to use the Talk product. So that's a big component of what we do. So a lot of it is in commercial facilities and dues-paying facilities. In Australia, we refer to it as within hospitality or corporate, not necessarily multifamily, but things like hotel facilities are something that we do a little bit of planning in. Throughout Asia, there are a number of different hoteliers and hospitality brands that we get to work with. We are working on doing more in that multifamily property type solutions where, with some of our distributors, they have apartment hotel gyms and their like. So it's quite a diverse category of client, and utilising the experience of 23, 24 years in the industry is certainly beneficial in helping design facilities that work.
Oh, I mean, it's interesting because it's a very different customer base, it sounds like, for the most part. I mean, multifamily in this area, if you look out the front door, there's probably a 400 unit apartment community. I can see from here, there's another one literally behind our building. They can't put enough of these vertical housing projects basically in this market right now. So you could never talk to all of that business. It's just not possible. And they build them faster than you can really, connect with them. But is there a lot of apartment housing in Australia? I have a family member who lives in Australia, but I don't know anything about it. So you're gonna have to give me all the Australia at Beats.
Yeah, so there is becoming more of it. But, if you think of Australia, it's about 70% the landmass of the US, but our population's only 25, 26 million, as opposed to 330, 340 here. So our population density is nowhere near what the US is. So there's not as much multifamily. But in some of the cities like Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, there is more what we call apartment complexes.
Right.
And they have typically facilities like what the multifamily does here. If you extend up into Asia, like markets like Hong Kong, the Philippines, in Manila, Malaysia, I've just spent 3 months up there, Singapore, there's a lot of those buildings that do have a facility in them, and the tenants or the people who are living in those apartments are starting to increase their level of expectation of what's in there, and certainly the gym or the fitness facility can play a big differentiator in there. So
Yeah, we call it like the arms race that's going on here down in DC. It's like property pops up across the street, it's got all the best, and then the next one pops up, it's got all the best plus one, and they've just been doing this back and forth. Now they've got golf simulators and rock climbing walls, and these apartment communities are like totally standalone now. So I know what you're talking about. So it seems like that market's heading in the direction that some of these metro markets here are already kind of heading toward. But I did see you had your hand up a few minutes ago, Steven. Did you have a question for Glenn?
Yeah, you made mention about dealing with competitive quotes, and I was curious, like here in the East Coast and even in the West Coast, the sales industry in terms of sales and repair service industry in terms of fitness equipment and fitness centers is through the roof. The competition is heavily saturated, especially here in the Delmarva region. How is it in your area in terms of like dealing with bids and dealing with even companies watering the market and probably undercutting people, because we deal with that all the time here?
Yeah, look, I'm fortunate that I deal in multiple different markets. So, markets like India, talk isn't a cheap product, as everyone at the table here is aware. And a lot of our distributors in different countries will suggest that it's hard to sell a more premium product. I use India as a really good example, where being particularly racist or stereotypical of a race, they tend to want to haggle on price harder than most races. Our Indian distributor in the market there is just going absolutely ballistic, and what we're seeing is his ability to sell it as a premium solution is taking price, to a degree out of the equation. And simple benefits that he's reporting on in that market is things where if they're investing more into having, a high quality storage and racking solution, they don't want to have the cheap imported accessories on that. They want to showcase the Torque branded accessories on there because they understand that it is a premium offering. So I think you can overcome competitiveness to a degree where you take pricing, again, to a degree out of the equation by providing a solution that is seen as beneficial. And the more that you involve the customer into the design, the more that they buy into the solution. So, to quote Torque's sort of philosophy on it, we use X design to help create the space and visualize it so that the people who are working with us on the space buy into that solution and they feel like they own it then.
Yeah.
So that's a really big part of that competitive landscape. Price will always be a part of any buying solution, but if you have that collaborative approach with people and work with them, it's less of a sales approach and more of a collaboration goes a long way.
Yeah, you make a good point, because I remember you saying earlier, there's not, with the Torque products, it's so customizable and such a premium product that you really stand out among other competitors out there. That's why it's one of the main reasons why we wanted Torque, because it was such a unique product, and you can adapt it to any fitness center, regardless of the size or the ceiling heights or what have you. And what's nice is that because you have that customization, because you can, plus it's on several software out there that people can visibly see it in a render, and even Torque themselves, the brand or the company offers the product as a render so that the customers can actually see, have an actual visual representation of what it looks like. That in itself is game changing and is huge, because in a saturated market, that's where you really stand out in terms of competition, is when you provide customers with as much information as possible so that they can arm themselves, whether it be they have to approach a developer or they have to approach ownership or whatever. When you give those customers all that information, you set yourself apart from all the other competition. And it's nice to see that you're doing the same thing over in your Asia, the APAC region.
Cool. Yeah. No, that was great. I mean, so when it comes to your territory back home, about how far are you willing to travel for a customer?
So the region I cover is
The answer isn't 33 hours for anyone that's listening.
No, I mean, over here is Minneapolis is the head office for Torque, so I'm fortunate that I get to travel into the US a couple of times a year generally and interact with our US team. But basically the region that I sort of cover is from India to Japan, across to New Zealand, and sort of everywhere in between, Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand. It's that Asia Pacific region. So it's pretty expansive. Lucky that I get to travel to a couple of the international trade shows in different areas as well. So next month I'm off to Germany to attend FIBO, which is it's just an unbelievable experience. I have no idea.
It's in German, bro. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do know that that's the show. I mean, people say it's absolutely overwhelming to be at. So I don't travel well, so I won't be at FIBO. And the reason why I asked you about your territory was because I know I'm not going anywhere that you do work. So you're welcome to. I can't travel that far. I don't even have the physical ability to travel that far. So anyone in those markets, man, Glen's your guy. I did actually have a download on the podcast last month from Jakarta. So I don't know if you're listening again, but call Glen. But yeah, it's really been nice though to hear a little bit about that. I know we've appreciated the Torque product, and I explained to you yesterday about how Torque is so it's like open-ended, the opportunities that you can create with that product. So I've been slowly like expanding what I do with the product so that I can fully understand how it all goes together, what I can create. Steven alluded to it, but it's really nice that the team at Torque proper, like the HQ team, I'll send them what I create, and they'll tell me all the ways that maybe I could do it better, and they'll help me to make sure that whatever the final product that the customer is receiving is like min-maxed, to perfection. And that's a really nice, feature of working with that team. But is there anything in particular? And if you guys have questions down the end here, feel free to just put your hand up, and I'll throw it over to you. But what about the Torque product in particular, Robert, with your hand up? Do you want to ask about it? No, Robert threw his hand up in my peripheral there.
No, I think we should give a shout out to Lucas and to Jimmy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I know we say HQ to keep it generalized, but those guys really help us out from time to time. But I'm going to spin it a little differently.
Spin it, bro.
Yeah, so Glenn and I had a chance to talk about, here we are as business owners setting up a podcast as part of like our addition to our business. And we laugh about it because it's not necessarily revenue driven. We have a purpose behind it, and I appreciated the purpose behind that. But what do you think in general is the value of giving back to our community, the information that we dispense back to our community? Like in your podcast, you interview different individuals, and within that podcast, you're basically sharing journeys in the fitness industry, but the passion that goes within that industry. And sometimes that gets overlooked as opposed to just the dollars and cents of everything. So, what is the value to giving back to the industry?
I think it's a twofold answer. I think education is vitally important in whatever industry you're in. If you can share and educate people, I think that helps you succeed. It also helps the customers understand more of what they're doing. But I think, in giving, we probably get back a lot more than what we ever give, if that makes sense. And I think it's just a privilege to be able to share information. And I think, if we get to give that information out to people, I think that's quite rewarding. And it's just an enjoyable aspect of what we do. Hopefully that answers that one.
Yeah, it does, because I think that's what gets overlooked, even to Stephen's point about being in a saturated market. We talk about competition and we talk about, all the nuts and bolts of the industry. But at the end of the day, there are some of us, I'd like to think you and everyone here at this table, have a desire to give back in an honest way, in the sense of, we talk about spaces and how a lot of the facilities we go into are dated. And so when we start talking about creating spaces, that's a language that many people don't quite understand. They see, I have this piece of equipment that needs to be replaced because of age. Well, that's true, but there's more to the process. I use the term rethink the space, because you don't, if you keep replacing the same equipment for the same reasons, everyone else, to what Steve added earlier, those facilities are falling behind in appeal. We talked about modernization of equipment. And so when you go into a facility with the Torque product, it would seem to me that that's really what you're doing. You're taking the space and you're kind of erasing what you see and creating something new. Is that true?
Yeah, look, there's a few answers to it. I think there's nothing more disappointing if you use an example of replacing a treadmill with another treadmill, and members don't even necessarily notice that you, as a facility operator, have invested, a large sum of money. It might be $2,000 to $7,000 or in Australia it might be $6,000 to $12,000 Australian dollars. Most consumers don't even necessarily understand that the old treadmill was replaced with a new one. Really, really disappointing when you multiply that number by a lot of quantities and the investment is not really appreciated. But in addition, I think demographics and trends change. There is less cardio typically being required in facilities because you start to look at hashtags like strength training have become the number one sort of thing. Women who lift is the number two hashtag that's around, and there's so much information that's supported the growth of strength in our facilities. So if we're literally doing just like for like, then we're not maximizing the space that we operators are capitalizing on. At the end of the day, they are businesses, and we have a great edge to what we do, where we do improve lives, and it's so many people in our industry have that underwriting factor, but we can't do that if we're not profitable businesses.
Right.
So if we as salespeople can give back value to operators and help them get a greater return on their investment, then they can help more people. So there is that underwriting aspect of it, that if you're modernizing and getting the most out of a facility, you potentially can have more members and help more people and be more financially stable to continue to do that role that we all feel passionate about. So
it's good. It's a good, and not to take, does everyone hear this? Steve hasn't said a word in more than 2 minutes.
Yeah, you asked the question, bro. You asked the question. I was letting you reply to the question.
Finally, I know Glen has owned clubs in the past. And we don't necessarily, we generally service clubs. Clubs in this area generally go direct to the factory. So what have you seen that you think clubs should rethink as far as how they approach their business today? Is there any advice you would give to our local gyms?
yeah, absolutely. There's things that, for example, walls and pillars in a facility. having the ability to wall mount or to use pillars effectively in a facility is something that, we at our core believe in is part of that maximizing the space. There's some configurations that we do where we compare a traditional 5-way, multi-jungle to our 4-way, and it takes up half the space, but you lose nothing in the functionality. One, it will save an operator some dollars, but secondly, that operator then has the space to put in a piece of equipment that might be, it could be a belt squat, it could be a hip thrust. It allows them to put additional pieces in so that their facility is enhanced. So not only are you replacing, in italics, like for like, you're actually increasing the functionality and then putting in some more, up-to-date modern equipment. So you get the ability, if you use the space better, to not only maximize the functionality, but to improve, the overall operation of the facility. And that, at the end of the day, is the underlying reason that gym design is so important. And if you can bring experts in that, I think it can, really maximize how a facility can be more profitable and stand out from their competitors.
Excellent.
Yeah, because we spoke earlier about the consultative approach versus a sales approach, and we've dealt with that. We actually did we posted it back in 2023, but it was an episode we did called refreshing reworks versus repetitive replacements. And basically that was what we talked about, was the idea that just because your treadmill is old doesn't mean you need a new treadmill. Just because your elliptical is old doesn't mean, or squeaky, doesn't mean you need a new elliptical. Like, you need to have somebody come in and help you be forward thinking into the spaces and where you want to get, not help you stay where you were 15 years ago when your property was built. Because that was probably fine, and that's, the owners expected a certain return on that investment, but moving forward into the future, you're not serving that customer by helping them stay behind the times, and that's really what we've tried to focus on in that way. And it can be challenging because some people are so focused on, the budget and keeping things right how they are currently so that they can maintain a status quo. But we really do try to talk to people about making meaningful additions to those spaces. It's not just spending $5,000 or $6,000 to replace the exact same thing with the exact same thing. You're just holding your place in time. So, is there anything? And I know you mentioned to it a little bit at the beginning, so I apologize if I'm sending you down the same road again. But what are maybe one or two core things about the Torque product line that allow you to be very forward thinking as far as space planning?
Yeah, I think, for younger listeners, they won't know what Meccano is, but I see the products of Torque like Meccano building blocks. You can basically construct anything from a wall unit to a center space where you might have a transition of flooring. When you build those Meccano sets, it essentially provides a customizable solution to every individual customer if that's what you want to achieve. Things like transitions in floor can be really good to look at functional training spaces. If you break down a functional training space into barbell and non-barbell, type training, those members have different needs and, different levels of maturity. There's different levels of intimidation. Barbells can be quite intimidating for a novice user, whereas for somebody who's been in the facility for years, barbells is just a very natural, part of it. If you use our center space and a change of flooring, you can have one area that is dedicated to functional non-barbell, and then the other side can be functional barbell type training. The change of flooring, the use of that center space creates a space divide without the expense of having to actually build a wall or create, different zones. There's some really exciting developments that are coming on with Torque. We're expanding the X Select line, so there will be more selectorized product that can fit into that modular design. So that's really quite exciting, and I think.
So right now it's limited pretty much to cable and lat stations right now, right? So they're gonna go beyond that.
Yeah. So currently there's 3. Probably by the time this airs, it won't be letting any cat out of the bag. Asia will be launching another 4 pieces of glute. And by the end of the year, we're expecting to have basically 10 pieces that will be available. It's really exciting in that multifamily space to think about things like creating glute zones or strength zones or different zones, but using the functionality of X-Create by having those center space units to differentiate those units and zones. Things like with the glute zone, so glutes are a fairly hot topic, in a lot of markets at the moment. One of the things with that is you tend to have a lot of females who want to train. They don't want to be opening their legs or exposing themselves to all members in a facility, but using the X-Create as a zone and using that as a wall helps create that privacy. So there are a lot of things, not just including functionality, but things like using the layout and the design to create privacy that can be really, really important in member retention.
Sure.
And comfort of members that makes it less intimidating.
Yeah, nothing worse than like a adductor, abductor, or a hip thrust machine like right in front of the window that looks out into the lobby. Like,
It's
people,
not great design.
people want a little privacy when they're doing some of those more, personal workouts and things like that for sure. And so that's great, man. I mean, we have found, and again, like the torque product can be a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose in that I can almost look at a space and outside of the cardio units, I could probably achieve an almost entirely torque solution. But it's so complex that I've been slowly building 3, 4, 5 bays. Now I'm doing some bridges and things, and I'm really every time I install a torque rig, it's the hit in the space. Pretty much, it's the sizzle piece. It's that attitude, personality thing that people walk in and they're just like, wow, We did one down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I get an email probably once a week talking about how the residents come in and say there's no other community in the area that has anything like the torque rig that we put in there. So they say they go and they tour the properties, but nothing else is as impressive. And they get so much feedback like that. It's been really nice. So to that end, what's your favorite torque product?
I think it's hard to always go past the tank. I mean, the tank's just such a ubiquitous piece that goes into a lot of facilities, but I love the Ripper.
Yeah.
I think, that product is quite unique. Having that magnetic resistance on a skier type product makes it quiet, which is one of the really big benefits. So probably those two. I love our cables.
Yeah.
The fact that we have a 4-in-1 or a 2-to-1 pull ratio without getting too technical in it, but the differences between the two, having them in one cable is fantastic.
I didn't know it the first time. I threw some weight on there and went after it and realized I wasn't who I thought I was, and then I realized it was the ratio.
I mean, you literally asked him which one is his favorite kid.
Right, sure. It's like asking a guy to pick a favorite kid.
All his kids are his favorite.
He knew the owners were listening. He couldn't pick this one. Yes. But I did see your hand.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. You travel, you travel everywhere. You've been to multiple countries. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of fitness centers. Which fitness center that you can remember kind of like stood out to you and why?
Super question. It's a great question.
RMS showroom. We know it's the RMS showroom. It's the most
yeah, definitely the RMS showroom. Thanks for the lead. I feel like I've truly hit the Everyone Needs a Spotter podcast where the question is led directly to what I need to respond.
I never abandon my people.
No, look, there's a number of different ones. There's a German brand. I've lost the name of it for some reason, but they've got 3 clubs I think here in the US. They've got plenty in Germany. Each one of their clubs is different. They try and theme the club, like the one at Santa Monica is quite different to the one in West Hollywood. So I love sort of seeing those type of big box facilities. But then when you go to a country like India, there's a brand, Volt Fitness, that's just accelerating really rapidly. And they're smaller facilities. They're only typically sort of 6,000 to 1,000, 6,000? Yeah, 6,000 to 10,000 square feet. We talk in meters in Australia, so my head's got to translate. And with the apple juice, it's,
Can somebody check Glen's conversion? I don't know if he was
those facilities are super impressive. They're putting great lighting in. They're using and making the most of space really, really well. So there are a couple of examples, but just so many different clubs that I guess I'm fortunate to see a lot of different facilities and clubs and
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool to see, because just in our market alone, just in like the Virginia, DC, Maryland region, especially in DC, you see a lot of unique fitness centers, and we also get to see our competitors design and stuff like that. And kudos to other competitors out there who do a good job. That's what we like to see, good competition, because it elevates our level as well. And ultimately the goal is to create happy customers. But yeah, in DC there's a ton of fitness centers out there that I was like, man, that's really nice, and you can really see the amount of money that they spent in designing a fitness center. And I'm sure you've seen your fair share of fitness centers traveling the world.
Yeah. Look, rising tides floats all boats, though, and I think that's the thing, is our industry is just continuing to grow, and I think as we start to get more recognition as an industry, where although there's been this stereotypical, it's about aesthetics, I think we're starting to, curb the tide, where people are recognizing that we have such a medical benefit, such an improvement with mental health. And if we can start to continue down that route, more and more members, penetration rates in different countries are going to continue to increase and grow, and our industry will continue to grow. So yeah, it's an exciting time to do what we do, and yeah, it's a privilege to be in this industry.
It really is. It's a very innovative time. I know Robert had a question, and we're probably gonna try to wrap it up here in a second. We're getting a little too long-winded. I don't want to take up too much of Glen's time, but you do know that you said that expression just now. Here we say the rising tide raises all ships. So it's just, I always appreciate those funny little dialectical differences in those things.
We speak English differently.
I told him you gave me a tool bag in my first wrench, and he called it a spanner, and I didn't know what he was talking about.
But call it or you a spanner? I'm not sure.
Can it apply to both? Yeah. Hey, Robert, did you have a question there for Glen before we wrap up?
I did, because we talked about it earlier that a certain manufacturer has transitioned to the equipment looking more visually appealing, almost like furniture. And it's interesting because one of the combatants that we are fighting has to do with, I'm walking a fine line here, but designers will go in and look more visually appealing when they design the gym as opposed to functionality.
Yeah.
And so that's been a challenge, because once the gym is put together and maybe we follow the designer through the course, when it's all said and done, I look at that and say, I wouldn't have done it that way, because the functionality has then been removed from that equation. It's more appealing from a design standpoint. Do you see any of that on your market?
Yeah, so I think probably a good reference point on that is some manufacturers either don't know or don't care. And I think equally that's quite concerning. When I say don't know or don't care, I do refer to the mystical term that most salespeople use, biomechanics. Biomechanics is just a made-up word, but the reality is function is a byproduct of biomechanics. And if a machine doesn't function effectively, it doesn't matter how good it looks. You might be able to bring people into the facility because it looks pretty, but if it doesn't feel great, and people know what looks good, but they also know what feels great, so they don't necessarily know brand. But when machines feel good, when members will continue to use them, and that's member retention. So in a dues-paying facility, member retention is huge. yes, you can sell a membership, but if a new bright shiny toy opens up down the road and their equipment feels better, then people are going to probably migrate to there. Your bright new shiny facility ain't bright and new 6 months, 12 months down the track. So what's going to retain a member is having equipment that functions better. So functionality, or form over function, is a highly I can't think of the words, but it's a flawed business model.
Yeah.
It's great to bring people in, but you want to retain them, and to retain them, you've got to have equipment that feels good and functions well.
Good point.
No, that's a good point. It can be tough. It can be tough to know how far to dig your heels in that situation, and to kind of where to draw the line. But we could go on and on, Glenn, and asking these questions and things, but we do try to keep them under an hour for listening convenience sake. So we really appreciate you, man. These insights into what it is that you do and some of your concepts are really appreciated. Hopefully our interchange has been beneficial to you, taking some things back home. I know I'm going to take some things away from our time together. So I'm very grateful. And as we wrap up on our quick discussion here, we're going to go around the table and we'll end with you, obviously. But Stephen, anything you'd like to say before we wrap up our chat for the day?
No, I think it's been great. Glad to have you here, and honored to experience a little bit of the tailor-made chaos here in the U.S. And wanted to thank you for spending the time with us and learn and share each other's experience. And certainly won't forget this.
Robert?
From a man of many words, I'll say this: it's been a pleasure.
Well, Wifey?
It was really nice having you with us, and I think you'll always be a part of us.
Yeah.
Well, it's really sweet. I don't think I've necessarily been in a room with so much love for a long time. So.
Glenn?
Fantastic.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Glenn, parting thoughts, words?
No, look, just in return, it's been a great privilege to come and spend some time over here. Hopefully there's some subtitles out there for people who don't understand the Australian. And just in all seriousness, you guys have got just such a great environment and team here. And it feels like I've got an American family in what RMS are. Very similar to what our business is back in Australia. So, yeah, thank you.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you very much. And I know I speak on behalf of the team when I just reiterate the thanks for you coming out and spending this time with us here. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up like we always do with our final request, that if you found this podcast to be informative, educational, or entertaining, that you would simply give us a 5-star review and nothing less. And maybe recommend us to a fellow listener who you think could benefit, and somebody who might like to hear Glenn's funny accent too. It's nice to have him here with us. But that's really all we got for you. I am the host, as always, Steve Heitzer, here with Everyone Needs a Spotter. So proud to be a part of this. Stephen D.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Robert Decker.
Have the most excellent weekend.
Will YB.
Have a great weekend.
Glen Taylor.
G'day, mate.
Okay, everybody. See you next time.